Hello and welcome back once again to the channel. Steuben here, and today we're going to take a look at Gardevoir EX in the post-rotation Temporal Forces metagame, and I'm honestly surprised at how good this deck is, still even with things like Psychic Embrace leaving and Mirage Steps also leaving the format. But there's a lot of cool different things that Gardevoir can do with this little bit of a changed up format, so let's just dive right in here. Gardevoir EX is a Psychic type 310 HP Stage 2 Pokemon EX with the ability Psychic Embrace. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy from your discard pile to one of your Psychic Pokemon. If you attach energy to a Pokemon this way, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. That's going to be a big thing to be able to worry about. You also can't knock any Pokemon out with that ability, so keep that in mind. You also have the attack Miracle Force for 2 Psychic and a colorless that does 190 damage and heals from all special conditions. So to get to Gardevoir, we are playing 4 Ralts. We have 3 of the Teleportation Burst. This is very relevant with control floating around. Teleportation Burst is a live attack, so it feels pretty good to be able to make sure that you can just go ahead and guarantee yourself to be able to move out of the active when Snorlax traps you. And we have 1 copy of Memory Skip for 10 damage. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and they can't use it during the following turn. So we have 4 Ralts and 4 Kirlia. Kirlia is 80 HP, Stage 1, and you have Refinement. You must discard a card from your hand to draw 2 cards. Pretty straightforward. This is the whole engine of the deck for the most part, is this Kirlia. So we're going to try and get as many of those set up as possible into these Gardevoirs. We also have a copy of Gallade with Buddy Catch. You can search your deck for a supporter once per turn. And then you have Swirling Slice for 160. You can preserve an energy off this Pokemon. What's really relevant about the 160 is the popularity of Chin Pao right now. You can actually just KO a Baxcalibur with this, preserve an energy somewhere else, and still feel pretty good about it. Alright, on to the new editions of the deck for the most part. Gallade was on and off in the past format, but you don't see it too often. But we are playing 2 copies of Drifloon from Scarlet and Violet base set, 70 HP, 2 attacks. First attack is Gust for 2 colors, super irrelevant. The second attack, though, for 2 Psychic, Balloon Blast, 30 times the amount of damage counters on this Pokemon. So if you Psychic Embrace 1 energy, you put 2 damage counters on there, you hit for 60. To fulfill the energy it cost, you're hitting for 120. Third one, so on and so forth, scaling up. 3 energies hits, for a lot of damage. And this thing, of course, has 70 HP, but we do play some cards to increase that HP, so we'll get into that very shortly. We also have 1 copy of Screamtail, similar attack in the form of Roaring Scream. This does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each damage counter on this Pokemon, so this is your sniper. We then have a Mimikyu from Scarlet and Violet base set, but we're also playing the shiny version from the ETB of Paldean Fates. Safeguard prevents all damage from attacks from Pokemon EX and Pokemon V, so it kind of forces your opponents to use other single prize Pokemon into this or their Radiance. And Ghost Eye can put 7 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon, so it's a nice way to get around whatever else. We also have a single copy of Fluttermane. When this is in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities except for Midnight Fluttering. And then the attack Hex Hurl for 90 puts 2 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. In the stream, I played that wrong. It didn't really matter too much ultimately, but I definitely I should have read the card before playing the card. The last 2 Pokemon are Manaphy and Jirachi. For Stellar Veil and Wave Veil, Manaphy prevents all damage done to your bench Pokemon from attacks, and Stellar Veil prevents all things done from your opponent's basic Pokemon in terms of effects of attacks, so like Sableye, being able to spread damage counters. That's it for the Pokemon lineup. Pretty straightforward again. The engine is the Gardevoirs, your attackers are the Drifloons, Screamtail, and potentially Mimikyu and Fluttermane. You can technically attack with Gardevoir and Gallade as well. For supporters, we are playing 4 copies of Arven to be able to search your deck for a item and a tool card to help get set up. We then have 4 copies of Ino to disrupt our opponent's hands and reset them, and this feels really good because we just can play Ino, reset their hand, also resetting ours, but use Kirlia to draw back up. We then have a single copy of Professor Turo's Scenario to put one of our Pokemon into our hand, discarding all attached cards. This is a way out of control. Theoretically, you can actually attack with everything in the deck except for Manaphy and Jirachi as like viable prize taking KO targets. So we'll just, you know, hopefully try and get out of the control lock if they somehow gust these up with like Erica or Boss or so on and so forth. Continuing on, we have the last supporter in the deck, Boss's Orders, just for a gusting effect. On to the items. Most importantly, we have 4 copies of Buddy Poffin. Search deck for 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less and put them onto your bench. This grabs Drifloon, Mimikyu, Jirachi, Manaphy, and of course, both versions of Ralts. So an ideal turn 1 is to maybe Arven for Buddy Poffin going second to establish the bench. We then have 3 copies of Ultra Ball to find our evolution Pokemon by discarding 2 cards. Then we have 2 copies of Nest Ball to grab basics right from the deck and put them down. So this will get things like Fluttermane or Screamtail into the spots where you couldn't get them with Buddy Poffin. We then have 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball to find a basic Pokemon from our prize cards. So keep that in mind. You want to be able to make sure, oh man, I prized my second Drifloon or a Ralts. You want to be able to use Heavy Ball to grab those. We then have 2 Earthen Vessel. This is pretty important to be able to get energy into our hand. You can also find this with Arven, which really helps since we play a lot less energy in this version of the deck than we did in the previous format. This really helps get energy into your hand and then discard other cards to start ramping them into the bin. We only play 1 rare candy this time around, most likely, which you'll see what our other choice of evolution is. We're going to manually evolve or play the TM, which we'll get to in a few moments, but this will let you skip from Ralts up to Gallade or Gardevoir. We then have 2 counter catchers to gust up. We're going to be behind. We're going to take a turn or 2 to set up our board, and when we are, we can use counter catcher to gust things up and KO them with Drifloon or Gallade or whatever you're able to attack with at that current moment in time. To recover pieces, which we're going to need to do a lot, especially with all the discarding from Kirlia, Super Auto let us put energy and Pokemon back into the deck. So if you need to use Screamtail a second time after it gets KO'd, you can Super Auto back in. If you need a Kirlia or a Gallade or a Gardevoir all over again, Super Rod's going to help out that way too. Or if you need to get energy in your hand for whatever reason, you can rob the energy back in and then play the Earthen Vessel to snag them back. The very last, but definitely not the least important item card in here is Damage Pump. Pretty unconventional card. Move 2 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way you like. This is insane to get extra damage onto Drifloon and Screamtail for their odd numbers, since they have odd HP. Once you've increased their HP with some tool cards, which we'll get to, this just lets you do so much more, and it's insane, honestly. Or if you need to take damage off of, say, Gardevoir, if you had to retreat it and move it up to Drifloon, then you can accelerate less energy there and spread the love elsewhere if need to. This opens up a lot of really cool plays. I definitely use this when I could in those tabletop games. We have 1 Stadium Pokemon League headquarters. Basic Pokemon need additional colorless energy to attack. Your basic Pokemon, you're already accelerating beyond what they need anyways with Gardevoir to get more damage counters on them. So headquarters doesn't necessarily hurt us, but it can hurt a lot of basic attacking Pokemon on our opponent's side of the board. In terms of tool cards, we have 2 copies of Technical Machine Evolution. The Pokemon that this is attached to can use the attack, evolution, choose up to 2 of your bench Pokemon, evolve them, and shuffle your deck, and at the end of turn, this gets discarded. So this is really good for your going second attacks, where you're able to like play Arven, grab whatever you need to set up, like Buddy Poffin, Nest Ball, so on and so forth, grab Vessel to get energy, and then any Pokemon that's a basic that we have on that first turn can sit in the active spot and use evolution, and then evolve up our Ralts into Kirlia, so that way next turn we can start using refinement, discard cards, draw cards, and then pop off into Gardevoir and start attacking without having to worry about finding rare candy all the time. Then for the rest of the tools, this is where we have the HP modifiers. We have the A-Spec Hero's Cape. Pokemon this card is attached to gets 100 more HP, so this lets you add way more damage counters to Screamtail and Drifloon without knocking them out. We have Luxurious Cape, which is basically the same thing, but this doesn't work for Pokemon EX or V, so you can't attach this to the Gardevoir, and as long as it doesn't have a rule box, you can do that. But the problem with the cape, this cape specifically, is when they knock out that Pokemon, they take an extra prize card. which is a little unfortunate. And last but not least, we have a Bravery Charm, just to give that basic Pokemon it's attached to 50 more HP, so it effectively puts Drifloon up to 120, so you can put technically 10 damage counters on there and hit for 330 damage. Absolutely insane with these cards to increase the Drifloon's power. And finally, we have 8 basic Psychic Energy for the deck to be able to ramp up our damage counters and the energy on play from Gardevoir's Psychic Embrace. But that's the list. Honestly, this was so much fun to play. I actually want to put more time into this and see if I can optimize this a little bit more, but this is a very good starting point. And for a lot of people too, there will be a Gardevoir EX League Battle Deck. I'll put the image up here. That should release around the 19th. And this is probably maybe the best starting point to upgrade that sealed product into a competitive style deck from a sealed product. And I think you're going to get a majority of these things in that product, like the whole Gardevoir, Gallade, Curlia line. I think you get Drifloons, you get some Bravery Charms. So you're probably just going to need your Buddy Poffins and probably like Fluttermane and Screamtail and so on and so forth. But that's the list. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. If you made it this far, hit that like button, please. Take a moment to subscribe. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers. We're getting closer and closer by the day. So join the community and keep an eye out for more live streams like I did last week on the channel. I'd like to do that at least once a week if possible, so keep an eye out for those. I also will multi-stream those over on Twitch, and on Twitch I have variety content, so if you want to go check that out, let me know. It would be appreciated. If you want to get a sweet deck box that can hold all of your dice and everything, check out Arcane Fortress, link in the description below. Removable dice tray, beautiful inserts and everything in here, so go take a look at Arcane Fortress as well. Use the link, support the channel that way. Get yourself a sweet deck box. They got a lot of other designs coming too. So that'll be it from me on this one. Much love, everybody, and peace out.